Dear viewers, this is Shashank and you're watching HW News English. Today, Maratha activist Manoj Jarange Patil ended his hunger strike after 7 days of his hunger strike, which he had said that he is on a hunger strike until fast until death. Now, today, a set of ministers from the state, from the Shinde-led Shiv Sena, from the Bharatiya Janata Party, and from the Ajit Pawar-led Nationalist Congress Party met with Patil and convinced him, spoke to him, and assured him that the government has started the work for a reservation which is going to be a permanent reservation. It would stay in the court, and earlier also a reservation was granted, but that did not stay in the court. The court quashed the reservation. So the ministers ensured that this particular reservation is going to stay. Kindly give them some time. Manoj Jarange Patil has accepted their request and granted them time till January 2nd, 2024. Now, this is the second time that Manoj Patil has withdrew his fast. Earlier, he had given time till October 24th, and now he has given time till 2nd January 2024. To know more about this issue, to understand what next in this Maratha reservation case, we have with us consultant editor of HW News English, Mr. Sanjay Jog. Sir, can you please shed some light on what could be the strategy of Manoj Patil behind withdrawing his hunger strike at this point? At this point of
Earlier,
time.
Manoj Jarange Patil was too rigid. He was not at all interested in a move to relent, neither to yield to the government's request or a demand. But finally, he has agreed to withdraw his fast, but again has given a kind of an ultimate that till January 2nd, the government has to provide a reservation to Maratha community. Otherwise, he will close down Mumbai, which is a financial capital, and he will not give any more extension for government to act upon. Now, let's discuss, couple of angles to that. How he has come to this decision. In August, September, it was his first kind of an agitation which he launched. Everybody knows here on 1st of September there was a lathi charge which took place, which took an ugly turn, which led to the deputy chief minister, who also holds the home department, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, had to tender an apology. Chief minister also intervened, claiming that the government is quite serious and they are definitely in a mood and they are resolved to give a quota to Maratha community, which will survive and pass the legal scrutiny. And ultimately, Mr. Shinde went to Jalna district, and he gave kind of an assurance, and that led to Jarange Patil to withdraw his fast. Then he went on a statewide trip. His meetings mobilized huge crowd. Means one of the meetings, it attracted more than 2 crore people. And then ultimately, the government has given about 40 days. So he declared in the third week of October that he will take a call for his future course of action. And accordingly, the 24th October was, according to him, was the last kind of a day or a deadline in which the government could not give anything. But so ultimately, he again went on an indefinite strike, a kind of a hunger strike. But in between, the government had formed a Sandeep Shinde committee to basically assess what are the what is known as the records of the Kunbi in Marathwada, basically a region. And based on their study, their tours and interaction with the people, they managed to get about 13,400 records. And based on that, the first report was submitted to the government, and the government accepted at the cabinet meeting which took place about 2 days ago in Mumbai, and it was decided to start issuance of Kunbi certificate to the Maratha community. Then simultaneously, Jarange Patil took an aggressive stand. He hardened his stand, saying that nothing doing. We are not settled only for giving such certificates to Marathas in Marathwada, but for the entire community. And that is the main issue here. He first of all he was restricting his demand for giving Kunbi certificates to Marathas from Marathwada. Then he extended his his demand, saying that it is to be further across. And then he goes on telling and giving and issuing an ultimatum, new ultimatums and warnings, saying that the entire Maratha should get the reservation, which he is saying that will be permanent. So now that's a major issue here. On the one hand, Marathas from Konkan region, those who are being treated or looked at as Kunbis, they are not at all happy with the government decision to provide Kunbi certificates. They said nothing doing. We want full-fledged Maratha reservation, which will stand the legal scrutiny. And interestingly, there has been a division within the community, because on the one hand, if at all you go for a Kunbi certificate, then what they are saying is that as if you are getting benefits under the OBC, for which again there is an issue, as the OBC community is not at all happy with this kind of development. They don't want their quota to be touched. So that's another kind of a controversy which was raging. So now, for a moment at least, the government has in fact received a kind of a sigh of relief for a moment, so that the Shinde committee can continue its exercise to find out such records, and accordingly the government can expedite giving this Kunbi certificate. But that's not all. How the government is going to get the restoration of the Maratha quota, which was scrapped by the Supreme Court in May 2021, is a major question, because there are so many angles involved in that. A, whether Maratha is backward socially and educationally. That was the earlier, kind of a criteria applied by the Fadnavis-led government, and the act was passed. Based on that, 16% reservation was given, but it was struck by the Bombay High Court, and it was brought down to 13% in government quota and 12% in education. But ultimately, it could not, pass the legal state, that the Supreme Court just scrapped, saying that, which is beyond the 50% quota limit, which has been set earlier. Now the question is, how the government is going to convince the Supreme Court within the, that permissible 50% limit. That's the whole issue. And that's why the opposition and certain, Maratha reservation experts are saying there could be a couple of, options, but two major options. The government has to, approach the government of India, saying that you will have to increase that 50% quota, and at the same time, they will have to collect the empirical data about the Marathas, and based on the State Backward Commission report, the entire empirical data will be submitted to the court, and based on that, if court agrees to this kind of a record, then and then only the actual, means the real Maratha quota can be given to the community. But that is going to take a time, and that's why repeatedly state government and the opposition leaders were arguing that it cannot be given in an haste. And ultimately, the government convened an all-party meeting yesterday, and they passed a resolution requesting Mr. Jarange Patil to withdraw his pass, give some time, don't go on issuing warnings and ultimatum, because it is not possible to give and provide a reservation in such a haste. And accordingly, a delegation of the ministers comprising from three ruling partners, they went to Jalna district, where he was sitting on fast, and ultimately he yielded. He was consistent that nothing doing. He wanted that the decision should be done by the government by 24th December, because till that time, the government has given an additional time to the Shinde committee to come out with the report. But finally he yielded, and he agreed to give time till 2nd of January. Now, there are a lot of things that the government will have to do. As Mr. Shinde right now addressed a press conference after Jarange withdrew his pass, at least for a moment, saying that in every district, at least 10, government employees will be basically given with only mandate of assisting the Shinde committee for finding out such record. Secondly, the government also will have to bring the members of the Maratha community, which will be suggested by Jarange Patil on Shinde committee, so that they can also mingle, they can also discuss within among themselves, exchange their thoughts, and they can proceed. And the third, very interestingly, the government will also have to simultaneously take the necessary legal steps to see how the Supreme Court takes up this curative petition, which they have agreed to take up. In the meanwhile, the government has already formed a three-member advisory board comprising three retired justices. At the same time, they are going to help the government in the curative petition. At the same time, they will also assist the government basically in all these legal battle that they will have to play in due course of time. So at least for a moment, the government has been relieved, but it's not a permanent relief. Until and unless the quota is given, I think Marathas are not going to accept, or are not ready to give further extension. At this point in time, government yesterday has taken a no-nonsense stand that they are not going to tolerate basically violence and arson. So ultimately, it is going to be the responsibility of the Maratha community to help the government to maintain peace, and thereby a law and order situation will remain normal. That's the present scenario. Shashank? Shashank?
Yeah, Sanjay
Yeah.
sir, what I wanted to ask is that there was a lot of reports that the OBC community would be not happy if the Marathas get inducted in Kunbi. If they get the Kunbi certificate and they get inducted in OBC, they get included in OBC. But what we saw today is that from the NCP Ajit Pawar faction, there was Dhananjay Munde, who is another OBC leader, who had come to convince Charange Patil. So how do you see that as?
No. Shashank, as a government, they have decided that, that's what Chief Minister has been saying that the quota will be given in two stages. The first stage is basically the giving Kunbi certificates based on the records that will be assessed and made and validated by Shinde committee. That's a one stage. And the second stage is for a permanent Maratha reservation or a quota that will stay in the court and pass the legal scrutiny. So it was natural that the government had to show that they are giving this necessary kind of a commitment to him, which will be taking at least some time, but they cannot now bypass the necessary legal and the administrative procedure which they want to carry out. So Dhananjay Munde's presence was nothing extraordinary. They have to be there because ultimately, what yesterday's even the resolution which was passed by this all-party meeting was that government is committed. I mean, all parties put together are in favor of providing Maratha quota in the legal framework without having any injustice to other community. That is quite clear and candid. So there is no doubt about that. Government and the other parties are very clear and unanimous that if at all the Marathas will have to be given, the existing OBC quota won't be touched. So that's very clear. Giving Kunbi certificate, is totally different. They may be entitled for the benefits the OBC communities will get, but they won't get, the quota kind of a benefits under the OBC because that is not the intention. Already, there has been a major section within the Maratha community that they are saying they should be included in the OBC category so that they can get, and that will definitely will not pave way for any kind of uncertainty or any scenario for increasing that 50% ceiling quota. So that means there is a section which is saying that आप इसमें से quota, I mean benefits दीजिए, including the Kunbi as an OBC, so that will be we remain within the 50% limit. But there is also another section which clearly is of the view that they are not happy. In various parts of Maharashtra, the youth who are getting these Kunbi community certificates are just burning them as a protest. They are not interested. They are not ready to settle on this could be community certificate. They want full-fledged, basically Maratha quota, like in the during the Fadnavis-led government, it was given that is 13% in government jobs and 12% in education. So we'll have to see how the situation evolves, how the government arrives at a kind of a decision wherein, or not just at this government level, but bringing in the central government on board and at the same time fighting legal battle in the Supreme Court. Still that we'll have to just keep a watch on what happens to Shinde committee, how the certificate issuance is expedited. Till that moment, what will be the further future course of action Mr. Jarange Patil takes and how the community responds. But one thing is very clear, government has adopted a no-nonsense approach, that making it very clear that it will not tolerate any kind of violence and arson, setting these houses of legislators, MPs on fire and creating violence on the roads, streets, and whatnot. So, government wants the community basically to assist and cooperate while maintaining peace so that the law and order situation is maintained. That's the interesting part, that the entire development has taken place wherein government is not at all in a mood basically to kind of I mean that a scenario that may emerge as if there is a free for all. Government is not at all ready to accept such kind of a scenario, but they want that the agitation, if at all they want to continue, they should continue in a peaceful manner. At the same time, now the ball is in Jarange's court also, and at the same time in the court of the government on how to give this reservation, which will remain permanent, which cannot be further scrapped by the Supreme Court.
Okay, so Sanjay sir, on that note, I think we can conclude with this live session. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much for
Yeah.
joining in.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you,
So,
Shashank.
yeah, 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 yeah. Viewers, we are going to keep you updated on any updates in Maratha reservation or any update regarding Maharashtra politics. But for that, you have to subscribe to HW News English.